Let's talk about the aftermath. Let's talk about the silence that follows a gold rush, the digital ghost towns where avatars used to roam, and the JPEG portfolios that now look more like a cautionary tale than a retirement plan. We are living through what I call the great repricing, a fundamental, painful, yet absolutely necessary recalibration of value for NFTs and the broader digital asset ecosystem. This isn't the end. It is, however, the end of the beginning. The numbers themselves are staggering. According to DeppRadar, the NFT market saw trading volumes plummet over 97% from its peak in January 2022. That isn't a correction. It's a paradigm collapse. A market that once boasted over $17 billion in monthly trading volume now struggles to clear a fraction of that. The speculative fever has broken, and in its wake we are left with a critical question. In this post-crash world, how do we determine what any of this is actually worth? The answer isn't about finding the next 100x profile picture project. It's about fundamentally shifting our valuation models away from hype and towards utility, away from floor price and towards fundamental analysis. The era of blind faith is over. The era of due diligence has begun. To understand where we're going, we must first diagnose how we got here. The 2021 NFT bull run fits perfectly into the classic Gartner hype cycle. We had the innovation trigger with CryptoPunks and the ERC 721 standard. Then came the peak of inflated expectations, a manic period where celebrity endorsements and headline-grabbing auction results at Sotheby's created a feedback loop of irrational exuberance. Everyone was a genius in a bull market. Now we find ourselves deep in the trough of disillusionment. The narrative has shifted from "this will change everything" to "I told you it was a scam." But here is where sophisticated investors and builders find opportunity. The Gartner model predicts what comes next, the slope of enlightenment and the plateau of productivity. This is the phase we are now entering. The great repricing is the painful but essential process of clearing out the noise so that real, sustainable value can emerge. It forces us to ask the hard questions we ignored during the mania. What does this digital asset do? What problem does it solve? Who is it for? And how do we model its value without relying on the greater fool theory? The first and most critical shift in this new paradigm of NFT valuation is the move from speculative value to intrinsic value, driven by tangible utility. The floor price, which became the de facto metric for a project's success, is a dangerously misleading indicator. It measures the lowest price an owner is willing to sell for, making it a proxy for current market sentiment and liquidity, not a measure of a project's underlying worth. Relying solely on floor price is like valuing a company based only on its daily stock volatility. It's incomplete and invites poor decision-making. The new valuation framework must be multi-layered, beginning with utility. We can break this down into several categories. First, there's access and social utility. A bored Ape Yacht Club token is no longer just a picture of an ape. It is a digital key that grants access to a global community, exclusive events like ApeFest, and commercial intellectual property rights. Its value is now tied to the strength and growth of the Yuga Labs ecosystem. Valuing this requires an analysis similar to that of a brand or a social club. What is the total addressable market for this type of exclusive membership? What is the ongoing value proposition for its holders? Second, we have functional utility within a specific ecosystem. Think of NFTs as in-game assets in a Web3 game or as digital land in a burgeoning metaverse like Decentraland. Here, the valuation model shifts towards microeconomics. An asset's value is derived from its ability to generate yield, its strategic importance in the game, or the potential for economic activity on that digital land parcel. A report from Chainalysis highlighted that a significant portion of NFT volume was flowing into these gaming and metaverse platforms, indicating a search for assets with demonstrable function over simple collectibles. The repricing here involves assessing the sustainability of the game's tokenomics and the size of its active user base, not just the rarity of the asset. Third, and perhaps most interesting for a professional audience, is financial utility. We are seeing the rise of NFTFI, or decentralized finance protocols that use NFTs as a new form of collateral. Platforms like NFTFI allow holders to take out loans against their blue chip NFTs. This is a game changer for valuation. For the first time, we can apply established financial models. An NFT's value can be partially derived from its ability to be used as a productive, yield-generating asset within DeFi. We can assess its collateral grade quality based on the collection's liquidity, historical price stability, and the perceived risk by lenders in the protocol. This introduces concepts like loan-to-value ratios and liquidation thresholds directly into the NFT valuation equation. Beyond utility, the second layer of our modern valuation framework is rigorous on-chain data analysis. This is where we move beyond headlines and analyze the blockchain itself for objective truths. The first metric here is, of course, rarity. Tools like Rarity Sniper provide a quantitative score based on an NFT's traits. However, the repricing has taught us that not all rarity is created equal. An algorithmically rare trait that is aesthetically unappealing to the community may be less valuable than a more common but culturally significant trait. So we must combine quantitative rarity data with a qualitative assessment of community preference. More importantly, we must analyze holder distribution. On-chain analytics platforms like Nansen allow us to see exactly who holds a collection. Is the ownership concentrated in the hands of a few whales who could crash the market if they decide to sell? Or is it widely distributed among thousands of long-term believers? A project with a growing number of unique holders and a decreasing concentration of ownership by the top 100 wallets is demonstrating signs of a healthy, decentralized community. This metric, the Gini coefficient for a token collection, can be a powerful indicator of network strength and stability. We also need to look at sales history with a more discerning eye. It's not just about trading volume. It's about the quality of that volume. Are sales consistently happening at or above the floor price? Or is the volume being driven by a few massive outlier sales while the floor slowly bleeds out? Are the buyers new entrants to the community or existing holders consolidating their position? Analyzing these on-chain transaction patterns provides a much deeper understanding of market sentiment than a simple price chart ever could. The third and final layer is a qualitative assessment of the project's fundamentals, much like a venture capitalist would analyze a startup. This starts with the team. Who are the founders? Are they public and accountable? What is their track record in Web3 or in their respective industries? A project led by an anonymous team is now, in this post-crash world, an immediate red flag representing unacceptable counterparty risk. The great repricing has shown that execution and trust are paramount. Next is the roadmap and its execution. During the bull run, every project promised to build a metaverse, launch a token, and create a game. Now we must judge them, not on their promises, but on their delivery. Is the team consistently shipping new products and features? Are they meeting their roadmap deadlines? A project that has delivered on its promises throughout the crypto winter demonstrates resilience and operational excellence, qualities that command a valuation premium. Finally, we have to consider the intangible but powerful factor of cultural relevance or provenance. Why is a CryptoPunk, a simple 8-bit pixelated character, still considered a blue-chip digital asset? Because it is a historical artifact. It represents the genesis of a cultural and technological movement. Its value is akin to the numismatic value of a rare coin or the artistic value of a Warhol. It's embedded in the history of the blockchain. This value is difficult to quantify, but is a powerful anchor during periods of market volatility. It's the Lindy effect in action. The longer it survives and stays relevant, the more likely it is to continue doing so. Let's apply this framework. Consider a blue-chip NFT project. Its repricing journey saw it weather the storm, not just because of its brand, but because it delivered on utility through intellectual property rights and access. Its on-chain data shows a resilient, distributed holder base. Its team, Yuga Labs, continued to execute, acquiring other key intellectual property and building out its ecosystem. Its cultural provenance is undeniable. Its value is now a composite of brand equity, network effects, and historical significance. Contrast this with a project focused purely on DeFi utility, perhaps one that tokenizes real-world assets. Its valuation during the repricing is almost entirely disconnected from the speculative NFT art market. Its worth is derived from the cash flows of the underlying assets, the robustness of its smart contract, and its legal and regulatory compliance. We value this not as a collectible, but as a financial instrument. The great repricing has forced this necessary bifurcation in the market. So, what does this mean for you, the investor or builder operating in this post-crash world? It means your approach to risk management must evolve. Diversification is no longer just about holding different PFP collections. It's about diversifying across different categories of utility: access, gaming, financial, artistic. It means abandoning the floor price as your primary North Star and building a valuation dashboard that incorporates on-chain holder metrics, qualitative team analysis, and a clear-eyed assessment of tangible utility. Understand the fallacy of liquidity. In the bull market, we assumed everything was liquid. The crash taught us that liquidity is a privilege, not a right. When market sentiment turns, the bid can disappear entirely, trapping holders in assets with no viable exit. This means that when valuing an asset, you must heavily discount for illiquidity, especially for projects outside the top tier. The great repricing is the defining event of this market cycle. It was a brutal but cleansing fire that burned away the unsustainable hype and speculation. What is left is the foundation for a more mature, resilient, and professionalized digital asset market. The speculative tourists have gone home. The builders, the long-term believers, and the discerning capital allocators remain. The future of valuing NFTs and digital assets will look less like an art auction and more like a venture capital deal memo. It will be driven by data, fundamentals, and a relentless focus on a single question. What is the real sustainable value here? Finding the answer to that is the greatest opportunity in Web3 today.